Hello, welcome to our final presentation, Dave Chappelle versus the LGBTQ plus community. My name is Deo Palomino, and joining me will be Felipe Bunge and Lucas Garcia in delivering this presentation. So the case study concerns Dave Chappelle, an American comedian who together with Netflix produced The Closer, which is a Netflix special, comedy special, which went up on the platform a few weeks ago. This caused some criticism from especially LGBTQ plus groups due to some transphobic jokes in the special. And the main stakeholders in this case, of course, Dave Chappelle, who has done a number of Netflix specials in the past already. Netflix, who is an entertainment company, produces a lot of original content throughout different genres. The LGBTQ plus community, which is unhappy due to the content of the special. They have organized protests and criticized Netflix, and also a number of Netflix employees who have been critical as well, some of which organized public walkouts during work days. Other stakeholders that were not directly involved in the case but also relevant, of course, shareholders who are interested in having good financial, in Netflix having good financial results, and the general audience who watch Netflix specials and shows, many of which were supportive of the special. It had very good viewing figures when released. So, as stated, on October 5th, Netflix released The Closer, and the reaction was critical from certain groups due to transphobic jokes. In addition, Netflix employees were also critical, 30 of which staged public walkouts. They also criticized management for maintaining this in the platform. On October 31st, Ted Sarandos, who is the CEO of Netflix, publicly supported Chappelle, and he has done so a few times. Netflix has not removed the special, and management in general has been supportive of Chappelle. And the fallout has been ongoing throughout the past weeks. Some employees have been fired over leaking confidential information regarding Chappelle's contracts, for example. There have been labor complaints filed due to alleged mistreatment from Netflix to certain employees based on their complaints, and in general, just a negative public relations look for Netflix in this regard. And so this led us to our research question, which is how important are employees' ethical expectations in a company's decision-making process, and how should companies balance them? And from this, we have 4 sub-questions, which we will try to answer in order to reach a conclusion from our research question.
Now we are going to move on to some support questions that will help us answer our research question. We will start off by talking about how can we balance different stakeholder demands in an ethical way. For doing this, we will talk about stakeholder analysis, ethics and economic results, and conflict of interest. Let's start with stakeholder analysis. First of all, we have ethics as a solution. One way of balancing stakeholder interest is by applying justifiable moral principles and not arbitrary balance of stakeholder demands. However, by doing this, we would not be considering every necessary aspect of the issue. Second, we have investment. In reality, Netflix has to find a way to deal with this situation, as they have invested $24 million for the show, and canceling it immediately could have dramatic effects for most stakeholders that have put their money there. And finally, we also have to consider other interests. While LGBTQ plus supporters might want the show to be cancelled, it is important to consider the interest of other stakeholders such as clients, advertising companies, and investors that have put their money there in order for the show to be broadcast. Now we will see the relationship between ethics and economic results. According to Elkington in 1994, there are 3 aspects that are relevant in order to evaluate a company's performance: economic prosperity, environmental quality, and social justice. Thus, it is important to note that companies' evaluation is not only reduced to the economic dimension, but also to others such as the social or the environmental one. Netflix may be tempted not to listen to complainers and run the show as such. However, companies are not only expected to make profits and chase numbers, they also have social responsibility and obligations that must be fulfilled. Therefore, while it is understandable that companies' ultimate objective is to make as much profit as possible, ethics should always play an important role, as it leads the social and environmental dimension that are important when assessing a company's performance. Finally, we will also assess the conflict of interest in this case. On the one hand, Netflix thinks that David Chappelle is a successful source of revenue. He also has multiple shows in the platform. Moreover, their main aim is to make a profit. Also, Netflix CEO has supported the purchase of the show, and the company believes that humor might justify certain words or jokes. On the other hand, the LGBTQ community disagrees with Chappelle's offensive jokes. They also want their rights to be heard and respected, and additionally, they think that humor is not always justifiable. Also, some employees and viewers have expressed their disagreement and have shown support to the community. Therefore, this is an example of how different interests for each stakeholders can be. In the end, it is all about finding a balance between an ethical and a beneficial decision. Now we will talk about how much responsibility a company has towards its employees. In order to do so, we will analyze two aspects: organizational values and culture, and ethical leadership. Regarding the first aspect, it is important to note that employees usually draw on corporate values to guide their actions. Moreover, this supposes a good source of motivation and loyalty for the company. Additionally, a strong culture reduces organizational complexity and creates an efficient communication network. Now, regarding ethical leadership, managers have a great influence on employees' attitudes and behaviors. As a consequence, the importance of setting an ethical example as a leader becomes essential for a company. Moreover, ethical behavior provides a better working environment that might lead to a higher performance and efficiency, resulting in better results for the organization. Therefore, both culture and management have a huge impact on employees, and hence, it is a duty for the company to create an ethical culture that provides the appropriate values for workers to be guided, as well as making sure that managers and directors are well trained so that they can transmit their ideas in an ethical and efficient way.
Our next point is how much employees' dissent should affect a company's decision. We believe this question to be an important one to the case due to the pressure that Netflix's employees were putting on the company to drop Dave Chappelle from their website and the fact that Netflix did not listen to them. One danger of not dealing with dissent is the effect that it can have on the company's public image. Having angry employees speaking publicly against the company can lead to a huge amount of support on social media against the quote, evil corporations. They say any marketing is good marketing, but we do not believe this to be the case. The amount of negative press that Netflix received after the scandal led to cause of people even potentially boycotting the company's services, which would have led to a loss of revenue for the company and would have benefited their fierce competitors in the streaming business. The masses can have large effects on any company, not just from an image point of view, but also revenue and affecting the core business. This can affect other stakeholders and quickly lead to more and bigger problems. Another danger is high employee turnover. This indicates deeper problems within the company as people are constantly entering and leaving, not helping create a sense of unity or togetherness in the company. Not only this, but a high turnover is very expensive for the company. Recruitment, training, and integration is of a huge cost to the companies. Having unhappy employees leaving and voicing why they are leaving will only make it harder to recruit more people, and this is a costly problem to have to solve. There are dangers with not listening to dissent like Netflix did, as it can have big effects on the company. We believe that dissent should play a role in decision making and, at the very least, be considered in any decision made, even if it doesn't change the original decision. Our next question is about how a company can deal with free speech and the importance of dealing it with a delicate matter in order to respect the employees' freedom of expression. Now, freedom of expression is important to gauge how satisfied your employees are, and it can be a good way to stop future problems before they occur. This freedom is a fundamental human right, and any attempt from a company to deal with it is not normally met in a positive manner. Companies have external pressure to allow their employees to express themselves, and most at least give off the impression of doing so. Even if it is easier for employers to force employees to comply with what they want, suppressing their employees' expression is not really a viable option. Furthermore, social media and work unions can create a lot of problems for employers if the issue of free speech is not dealt with delicately by the employer. This is why I suggest the following ways to deal with free speech in a way that benefits the company while also respecting employees' rights to free speech and ensuring that they remain happy. The first method is to allow employees to express themselves internally through a set communication channel. This way, you ensure that you have the best possible chance to deal with any issues that they may have before they become public and affect the company negatively. Imagine if Netflix's LGBTQ community was able to express themselves to the company directly without having to make protests and voice their concerns publicly. This would have avoided Netflix a lot of headaches. Employees should always have the chance to voice their concerns in order to have a better and happier workplace. And by ensuring they do so through the proper channels instead of publicly, the company has a certain amount of control and is able to react before any of the issues get out of hand. The second method is to remind the employees of the common good. Make them feel involved and happy and part of the company, and they will think twice before using the right of expression publicly, as it will not only damage the company, but it will also damage themselves and their co-workers. By building up this culture of inclusion and making sure that employees feel part of the culture, part of the company, and happy with the place they work, you will reduce the chances of them speaking publicly and causing damage to the company. At the end of the day, these methods of dealing with free speech are not meant to stop the employees from expressing themselves, but simply making them do so in a way that doesn't also hurt the company. Free speech is a vital pillar of any company's employees and should be respected, but we believe that there are ways to deal with it to ensure that this right is respected without causing harm to the company.
Moving on to the conclusion, we'll look at the arguments presented in order to answer our research question. The first thing to do must be to understand all stakeholder positions and interests in order to balance them in an effective manner. In Netflix's case, many stakeholders are directly present, as we stated, such as employees or pressure groups, but other stakeholders, such as shareholders and viewers, must be considered in the process. You also have to consider how influential employees are in your business. Is it a talent-driven business? Is it a process-driven business? This can have a different effect. Obviously, employees are key for the functioning of any business, but in certain industries, especially those where employees are required to be a source of creation and innovation for the business, they may have more influence over decision making. Another important thing to note is that taking a utilitarian approach, whereby the action taken is that which produces the greatest good for the greatest number of people, could be the most appropriate way, despite employees' interests. You need to understand how to properly balance these interests in an effective way to reach a decision. For example, for Netflix, they decided to maintain the special despite the protests and criticism, perhaps due to the balancing of general viewers' interests in the special due to the large viewing numbers and support for the special against other stakeholders and their criticism to the special. Moving on, establishing a strong organization culture is also important. It has a strong effect on how employees conduct themselves and represent the company. And this begins with management, who have to lead by example. And this doesn't mean agreeing with those who are critical, but acting in an ethical manner and establishing a positive culture in the working environment is important because it clearly sets out how employees should expect the business to conduct itself, as well as establish trust between employees and management. Furthermore, dealing well with feedback, whether this is positive or negative, is important. Dissent is an example of negative feedback, showing Netflix that they're not happy with their decision to maintain the special. And disregarding this type of negative feedback can have bad effects for a company, such as worsening of public image. For Netflix, the information about employees walking out and pressure groups protesting is not good publicity, especially for a company that deals directly with consumers like Netflix. And understanding this feedback can lead to better employee relations as well, important to avoid turnover. And whilst not everyone will be satisfied, hearing your stakeholders and acting on this feedback in whatever manner this is, it doesn't have to be drastic, it can be simply informing future decision making, is good in creating trust and letting employees know that they are valuable in the decision making process. Finally, respecting and encouraging free speech within the organization is also vital. Empowering your employees to be comfortable in sharing their opinions with supervisors or management, and this can also be through fostering a positive attitude towards feedback in the company. Different opinions and viewpoints is a source of value for any company, especially one such as Netflix, which prides itself with being diverse and catering to a global audience. And this way, employees will not take drastic actions when trying to manifest their criticism to management decisions in the future. They will feel heard, and this is very important in order to meet their expectations in the decision-making process. Overall, You will never be able to please everyone, especially when stakeholders have opposing views and interests. Employees are a crucial member of a firm, not just because of their integral role in the functioning of the business, but as a representative as well. Thus, it's imperative that their expectations are understood and addressed, even if management takes decisions that they don't agree with. And from an ethical point of view, their decision-making process should always take them into account.